Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Reds Rundown podcast, hosted by two lifelong Reds fans and journalists. I'm Rob. He's Joe. And we appreciate you guys taking the time to join us today. As always, Joe, we lead off with the age-old question, the important question. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Football season's winding down. College basketball season's kind of getting to its peak here in the next couple of weeks, months, and baseball's almost here, Rob. Baseball's almost here.
It's incredible. We are 2 weeks out officially, Joe, from pitchers and catchers reporting, which is surprising. There are a lot of players apparently already down at Goodyear. I know Matt McLain's been down there at different points, mostly rehabbing, I think, still, and getting himself ready for the season. It sounds like some of the other pitchers and people who have been doing a bit of the Reds Caravan, quick shout out to the Reds Caravan, have gone down there as well. So we are definitely getting close to some baseball. And as we're doing now in Season 2, we're going to discuss today minor league deals, a trade that we had with the Dodgers, Anthony Santander, Joe, the Reds international signings, the top 100 prospects list is out, the Reds non-roster invitees are out, and Joey Votto. So while maybe not a ton of sustenance, there's a quantity of things worth a quick discussion for today's episode, Joe. And we'll start as well as always with the question of the day. Which of the non-roster invitees will make the team, if any? Joe and I will be tackling that here at the very end, near the very end of the show. So make sure you stick by and check that out. But let us know in the comments below which of, those non-roster invitees that we'll list that you think are going to make it. Or if you want to check it out before then, you can do that and let us know in the comments as well. But let's move on to the first topic real quick, Joe. I didn't put this on the discussion list, but I did want to have a quick moment for Bob Uecker, legendary Brewers broadcaster, passed away since our last episode. At 90 years old, this man, just a bit outside, baby. I mean, I can just hear the Major League, movie calling to me. The man was a good baseball player and a legendary broadcaster, and we definitely lost one of the great voices of baseball.
Oh, we definitely did. You're going to have some of the best baseball movies of all time, Major League and all those. So I remember him from that. But if you watched baseball, he had some good stories. He was, we've lost a lot of good announcers in the last 4 or 5 years, whether it's retirement or passing away. So kind of like leaves a void in the sport. I'm excited for some of the new crop of announcers to kind of step up, like our very own John Sadak. Obviously, love watching games with him. Jason Benetti, who now is with the Tigers and had that legendary run. But definitely a sad moment for baseball, and I'm hoping to see, before the season starts, some more clips of Bob Uecker and highlight videos of him, and maybe a moment of silence when the season starts.
Oh, I'm sure that we will get one. I mean, again, we've lost him, Vince Scully, Marty Brennaman has stepped away. I'm trying to think if there's any other really, really, really big ones. Obviously, we had Niehaus for the Mariners a few years ago. So that era of baseball. What's his name? What's his name from the Yankees? He stepped away as well, even though he did the playoffs this year. But one of the legendary broadcasters for the Yankees as well stepped away in the last year. So a voice that I know very, very well from watching a lot of Yankees games growing up. Reds fans probably don't like that, but I've got a reason, another day that we'll discuss that one, Joe. Not as much of a Yankees fan now, but as I was growing up. But definitely a memorable voice, and like you said, I think Benetti and Sadak are some of the best up-and-coming ones. And I know that sounds biased, and maybe some of you don't like. I know there are people who don't love John Sadak, and all I will say to you is that I believe you are wholeheartedly wrong. I think he is outstanding. But unbiasedly, we will continue here. Quick couple signings for the Reds. They bring back Levi Jordan, Austin Wynns, and Alex Young to minor league deals. I think, Joe, personally, Alex Young's the only one that I see potentially having a chance to make this team at some point, not to, I guess, give away too much in terms of the non-roster invitees, although I don't know if he is technically one. So I guess I'll give mine away now. I do think that Alex Young ends up potentially making this team, depending on how many injuries we have or if they sign another piece for the bullpen. I know Derek Johnson really likes Alex Young, and I actually don't think he was very bad. I just think he was injured, and the Reds needed to make a move. and they did when they traded him. But I actually think that he's been pretty solid for the Reds overall, and I think he'll be a nice arm to have as a potential backup. But anything of note for you with these three guys, Joe?
Yeah, obviously he was on the roster last year, but Alex Young is a guy that I do like, and I feel like there's not going to be room for him in the bullpen. There's a chance he outpitches people in the spring, and maybe Terry values that, but
Yeah.
they gave him a minor league deal for a reason. I think he might be comfortable here. I think Derek Johnson probably likes working with them, and it was a number crunch last year. Definitely a good chance to make the roster if one of the lefties in the bullpen goes down.
Yep.
We were asking for bullpen help, but I think we were looking for more than just a minor league camp invite. So the only way he gets to a point where he makes the team is if he pitches amazing in the spring, or if have some of these left-handers that we already have, like Sam Maul and Brent Suter, kind of go down.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking too. I think he's the third option there, lefty. I will say the Reds are still, we're not talking about it much today, but they still are, at least as of the recording of this, in talks with Carlos Estevez. Even in the last week, I've heard multiple times. I think that they are pretty serious about going out and getting him. I just think that he is potentially waiting to see if he can get a better deal, and if not, then I think he may just end up signing with the Reds. I feel like that would really bolster the bullpen in a pretty significant way, having him and Alexis Diaz as your 1-2 punch at the end of a game. I don't think that that's a bad idea, and I think that may also be part of the reason why he's waiting, is to figure out if he's going to actually get, be the closer, or if he's going to be a setup guy for Diaz. I'm sure that is going to be a topic of conversation as well. So we'll have to see kind of how that looks. But yeah, I mean, Wins I think is a good third or fourth option at catcher, and Levi Jordan can at least play some decent defense and has a below average bat for sure, but at least an okay option if you absolutely are just decimated with injuries like we were last year. So we have that. Then we had, and people can get mad at us for some of the Dodgers signings, but we gave some international money, which technically doesn't cost us anything, which is part of the reason why I like this trade, because they were going to get, their signings no matter what. Somebody was going to trade them for these people, but we get Arnaldo Lantigua, who is a very interesting prospect, somebody who was pretty well valued on the market in terms of when he initially got signed. He was pretty high up there. He's only 19 years old, but Joe, this kid's bat is very impressive. I'm not normally one to pay that much attention, because normally what you'll see is a kid who bats like, 270 and hits like 6 home runs and it doesn't matter. Between his age 17 and 18 season, I'm going to very quickly just read off his stats, but he went from 22 hits, 4 doubles, 7 home runs, 24 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 18 walks to 26 strikeouts, a 222 batting average, but a 345 OBP, and an 819 OPS, even with a 222 batting average in 29 games, to playing 20 more games, 46 hits, more than doubling his hits, 3 more doubles with 7, 4 more home runs, and a triple to add on to it, 42 RBIs, 2 more stolen bases, almost a 50-50 split in walks and strikeouts, with a batting average of 300 and an OPS of over 1,000, just over 1,000. I'm going to be honest with you, this kid has some interesting tools, and I think that the Dodgers are really hoping that he would turn into something. He's 6'2", 200. So he's already a pretty big kid. He's an outfielder, right-hander, both at the plate and throwing. I'm not going to lie to you. I think this kid could be something in the future. We probably won't talk about him again for like 2 or 3 years. But I will say that, like, for just giving up essentially nothing to allow the Dodgers to get a player, to get somebody who, if you're needing to continuously replenish your system, this kid's pretty solid. I know that it may not sound like much, but it is sometimes important to watch international signings, mainly because of the fact that you could find players like Elly De La Cruz, who was not even in the top 30 prospects for international signings, and you want kids with tools. And it's very rare that you see somebody, even at this level, that can make that big of a jump in 1 year. I'm excited to see. I think there's a chance this kid's going to start off in A-ball, to be honest with you, Joe, or at least rookie ball. And I'm really excited to see what he could end up being. I know it sounds really stupid, but like, I'm very serious that I think that by like age 22, if this kid continues to develop, continues to grow, because he's going to get probably taller, he's still only 18 years old, and puts on some more muscle, this kid could be really good, and the Reds basically gave up nothing for him.
Yeah, I like the trade because you don't give up anything for him. I think
Hmm.
it's for the Dodgers want to keep on that international signing bonuses getting bigger and
Yep.
bigger because they attract everyone. So that's nice that we get to help them out, I guess. But I like the trade for that reason. I would say I'm pumping the brakes on this. So all these stats are from the Dominican Summer League.
Yep.
I think it's good to show that improvement, but this is a very much it's a league where like the oldest people in the league are like 22 years old, right? So it's all 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20-year-old kids. He ranked 64th in batting average in the league, and there were like 72 people who had over a 300 batting average. I don't know how to make of that. I don't know how to take it. So it's like very much like hey, good, we got him. But in what league ever do you have 72 people batting over 300? So it's very much a flyer to me, and a one that's like good that we did it. I'm glad because we weren't probably not going to use that money anyway.
Yeah.
We got something out of it, but um, I don't know. I need to be honest. I need to watch some more Dominican Summer League before I can have an opinion. But it seems like there's just a lot of guys who hit the ball in that league, and maybe not the best pitching. With 72 players, I mean that's crazy. So excited for him. We'll see if we talk about him in a couple of years here. But when I was doing the research for the podcast and I was seeing that, I was like, what, this would be the most fun league ever to play, and you could just like boost your stats. If I'm an American, I'm gonna go to Dominican Summer League and play down there for a couple of years and boost my stats up there. So excited to see what he can do though. He definitely has a chance in a couple of years to be a guy that works out for us. He's showing that improvement was good. Good eye at the plate too, 430 on base percentage. So that obviously doesn't always happen even with those high batting averages in some of those leagues. So excited to see what he can do.
Yeah, Joe is pumping the brakes. I think in a good way. I'm just saying it's nice to have a 6'2", 200-pound 18-year-old who showed not only improvement but has clearly some speed, has at least some pop in his bat, which I think is important, and like you said, has a good eye at the plate. I think you can do a lot, you can mold a lot with players like that. So felt like it was worth pointing out a little bit, but we'll see.
No, to
Could
your
be.
point, the pop might be what they're going after too, because like the average, like definitely one of those things where if everyone has a 300 batting average in the league, maybe it's not as valuable. But he did have 11 home runs, which tied for second in the league. So this is a league that plays like 50 something games. He played like 46 of them or something like that.
Yeah.
So this is it's a good flyer. That's all I'm saying. It's a good flyer. I expect he can probably develop pretty well in our minor league system. Maybe he works out, maybe he doesn't, and it's a good trade. But I don't know what to make of that.
Hey man, over 100.
Never seen.
Over a 162 game season, this kid would have 35 home runs. So you can't count that out. That's got to count for something.
Very true.
I will say, yeah, it was just interesting reading the articles too. To be honest with you about him, a lot of people were like, "Oh, this kid's actually pretty good." So, but you never know. A lot of kids just don't end up developing at all. But I think if he continues on a tear like that, he might be somebody really worth paying attention to. And I don't even know if he made it. You know what? Give me 2 seconds. I want to know if he made it into the new prospect list for the Reds at all, actually, because that can actually kind of signal a lot, because they just redid theirs, and we will be going over the Reds prospects here in just a few minutes. But while I'm searching for that, because the MLB's website is garbage, the Blue Jays went out and signed Anthony Santander. Joe, somebody who you and I had been really wanting. Also, the Braves went out and got Jerkson Profar. Two, switch hitting bats that I think the Reds were probably in on. It did sound like the Reds were at least one of the 5 or so left options for Santander, as they've been with pretty much everybody. They're at least attempting to, but they're just getting outbid, which is not a huge surprise. But getting 5 years, Joe, was the big thing. The money wasn't too terrible, especially considering they deferred so much of it. But 5 years is what I was interested in. He's already in his age 30 season. He'll be 36, I believe, by the end of that deal. I feel like he's going to have a dramatic drop-off, as most hitters do, unless if they're all-time great types of hitters or, I don't know, Hall of Very Good type players. So I feel like the Reds potentially could have gone for a higher AAV, but done it over 3 years, and he might have signed. This one was a little disappointing for me, Joe.
Yeah, with how big of a year Santander had last year, it's definitely something you think they would have at least tried to make a move and played ball with, because to me, like the deal is big, but it's not as big as like maybe he could have had either. Um, and I think for a team that just needs, you know, something that we've talked about on Twitter, it's just like one or two more bats and some bullpen help, and then you start really getting really excited about this team's chances. That's kind of tough. So, um, a guy we talked about again. I didn't really give a realistic shot that we would do it just because of how we usually operate, but do I think we still need a veteran bat who can drive in runs and maybe be consistent for us because that's what we were kind of looking for from Jamer last year and just didn't get that. Yes, I still think we need that. Is the number of those going down in free agency as we keep on going towards the season? We know baseball free agency takes
Big
forever,
time.
even up to the season. Like JD Martinez was so late last year. Yes, but like the number of people we can sign is kind of going way, way down. So good for Santander to get a new spot. I know a lot of Orioles fans are upset because he's going in division, and they're definitely focusing on their young players and developing them. But I would have thought that the Reds would have had some sort of plan for the outfield by now. But it really does seem like they're just going to sign bats out of value or trade bats that give them value and then move people around. But they still I would still want more bats even if they're going to do that, and that's the kind of end game there for the Reds.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I've been trying, Joe, to get this MLB prospects thing to come up. Maybe you can do it because for some reason, whether it's on my phone, on an incognito window, or on a different browser entirely, it won't happen. But while you're doing that, Santander is I think a good player. I don't blame the Orioles for letting him go, and I don't blame the Reds for maybe not wanting to go to 5 years if that's what he cared about more than even the average annual value. But it is something that is a little distressing, and I really thought they might go after Profar after that because it feels like he got it feels like the Braves got a pretty good deal out of Jerickson Profar. I know a lot of people don't think he's gonna be able to repeat, and I can't say that I honestly disagree with that, but 3 years, $42 million feels very much in the range of what the Reds can do. Profar was a former top prospect and really, really brought it together last year. I'm a little disappointed that 3 years seems very doable. He had 280 last year, which is really good. 24 home runs in a ballpark that does not give up many home runs whatsoever. 85 RBIs. Didn't strike out very much. Like, it sounds like the perfect kind of guy. He even finished in the top 15 for MVP. So it's like really disappointing. I think Profar was kind of a secret guy that they should have been a little bit more in on than they were, and that is what it is. He'll go to Atlanta and probably be awesome because they seem to do that. While we're all focused on the Dodgers, they're a team that's just going to secretly find random, diamonds in the rough and continue to do what they do. But that is what it is. But we'll move on. Joe, the Reds had a solid international class headlined by the 18th best prospect. I believe his name is Libers Aponte. I probably butchered that, but we'll see. But 18th best prospect with as a defensive-minded shortstop that they're hoping to mold into a better hitter, but sounds like he is just an outstanding, defensive player, good hands, quick, strong arms, so they are definitely pretty excited about him. They signed him to a $1.9 million deal, which is pretty crazy. And then they also got, can't find him. Okay, here we go. Henry Torres, a left-handed hitting catcher, who is interesting as well. That was the first one that I had seen. They got a couple other guys, but nobody of major note, but we'll be watching Henry Torres and Libers Aponte. He does look, from the video that I'm watching, pretty good, Joe, at least in terms of he's just very smooth. But, guys, again, that I think, yes, are we in a bit of a lull for major Reds content? Absolutely. But, these are people who you will want to pay attention to. They don't just sign players to basically no money or to big money for no reason. They're not just going to go after, the 18th best prospect and he's just never going to pan out completely. He will make his way through the Red system and we'll see if he ends up being able to develop, right? They really like his tools and we're hopeful that I always love when you can find a catcher that people are excited about, especially in the international in the international field, because I think that there's a lot of improvement that can be made there. So, any thoughts on the international signings, Joe?
Right. This definitely want to have some hopes for these guys, but definitely don't want to put too much into it just because it's so far away from where they're going to be. But you're right, that does signal something when they spend that much money to get a player. We'll see how they possibly do. We get Ellie De La Cruz from some similar beginnings, so we'll see what comes of this. And Rob, yeah, they're doing maintenance on the MLB site. I can get the top 100 by MLB, but I can't get top 30 by team, so I have no idea.
Yeah, well, we'll see. If you guys really want to know, go check it out yourself when they're not doing maintenance. But that's all right. We'll move on then, Joe, to the top 100 prospects in baseball. The Reds had 5, which is a little bit surprising, but also not. I actually think that there's one guy on here who's a little higher than I had anticipated, to be honest with you. Somebody who's on here who I wasn't expecting at all, to be honest. But in our top 100, they have Chase Burns at 26, which is great. Rhett Lauder slides a little bit, but only down to 35. Sal Stewart, that's my big surprise one, at 84. Cam Collier makes his debut at 91, I believe, or might have been on it last year, but slid a little bit. Can't remember. And then Edwin Arroyo definitely slid, but he just had an injury. I don't think that that's any indication of him not being a very talented prospect. So I'll let you start with this one, Joe. Who do you want to talk about here?
I think we both are pretty familiar with the 2 pitchers to start. Those guys should be on there. Arguably could be higher, I would say. I think they're in a decent spot, but we don't have any top 25 prospects because Chase Burns is 26. And I think those guys are pretty similar, too. I don't know that Chase Burns is a better prospect than Rhett Lauder, necessarily.
I don't either.
That's a different topic for a different day. I, too, was surprised with South have a pretty good year last year. 279 batting average, but only 8 home runs. I'm not overly impressed. I think that's a prospect maybe they dangle and try to trade if they do try to get better by the trade deadline, which they often do not. Cam Collier hasn't really hit for average in a while, since I think 2022 when he was in the rookie league. I do really like his game, and I like Edwin Arroyo too. So I guess I'm in a similar notion of those bats. I don't know. I guess the bats are put in solid spots for Cam Collier and Edwin Arroyo just because we don't know. I think Arroyo is probably the best bet to outperform where he's ranked. But he's hurt, and Cam Collier just needs to hit the ball more for average. Sal Stewart is definitely the one where, if they took him out of the top 100, I'd be like, yeah, that probably makes a little bit of sense. And hopefully he does well, but I excited that they had 5, considering how many guys they've brought up recently that are young. They definitely need to keep on restocking these young prospects and help them for the future, too. Because I don't... You're banking on the 2 pitchers to be there, Rob. Even Arroyo, just because of the injury,
Yep.
I don't know what the time frame is, and you just don't know if these guys are going to pan out. The hitters just aren't as good at prospects, obviously. That might make it a little bit tougher down the road.
Yeah, Sal Stewart, it's a lot of love on MLB.com and other places as well. I just don't see anything that flashes in terms of, I don't know, he's playing positions that we don't really need. So I feel like they should absolutely look at trading him unless if they feel like he could be better than Arroyo, which... he literally plays second base and third base. Arroyo can play second base and shortstop, and Cam Collier plays third. So I think both of them are better prospects than Sal Stewart, but I could be wrong, right? I haven't watched, every Sal Stewart game. I barely even know what he looks like, to be honest with you. And normally I pay a decent amount of attention to prospects. So they're the 3 of them. I think it's great that they are all there. I think Cam Collier actually has some of the most talent, at least bat-wise. I think Edwin Arroyo is going to be a guy who may not hit for, definitely won't hit for a lot of pop. He's going to be I think, high-contact guy, good defender, which the Reds could honestly use, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if he hits well in AAA, if he maybe makes it up to the Reds at some point this year. Collier's bat's very good. He's made it into future games, I believe, twice now. He is developing, I think, a little bit better than people thought. At least his pop is really starting to show, I think, in a very serious way. And if they can, get him to do a little bit more contact, he could be a guy who hits 230, but, drives in a bunch of runs and hits, 30 home runs in his career. So he's interesting to me. Again, Sal Stewart's just he's kind of like a guy who can do it all in a weird way, but nothing excellently. He's solid, but not outstanding in any way. And sometimes you need those players. I do think that Rhett Lauder is being slept on in a big way. I think There are a lot of players on this list that have not gotten much, if any, MLB experience. And not just that, but I think that Rhett Lauder showed that he actually can pitch with the big dogs. I mean, I know it was only 6 starts, but a 1.17 in your first, or 7 ERA in your first 6 starts is pretty outstanding. I'd like to see him get his walks down a little bit, and he pitched himself out of some bad situations, but only a 219 batting average against. Like, if he gets his whip down from a 1.27 to like a 1.1 or something like that, and keeps like a 3 ERA in the big leagues, like, you're going to be a very good pitcher. So, I don't know what's in store for him this year. I do think that Chase Burns is probably going to ultimately end up down in AAA. I know he's technically starting at rookie ball, but this kid is just too good. There's no way it takes him very long to work his way up. I think he spends maybe this year down in the minor leagues, and maybe even by the end of the year, he's getting a call up as like a reliever of some kind. They used to do that with pitchers, and they don't do it as often anymore. Like the Adam Wainwrights and the Cole Hamels and all these kinds of guys back in the day, they'd come up and do some bullpen work for a team if they just had an outstanding season. And they were just too good, so they would give them some bullpen spots, while teams would make the playoffs and whatnot. Like, I feel like I remember Wainwright and Hamels specifically, like, in the playoffs for their respective teams as rookies, but in the bullpen, and then the next year they made the rotation. So, I wouldn't mind seeing that whatsoever. I am pretty excited that the Reds had 5. There were only 3 or 4 teams, I think, that had more than them. One of them being the Dodgers, I believe the Red Sox, maybe the Tigers and Orioles, something like that. I don't know. There weren't very many NL teams, and there weren't very many teams from our division. I think the Cubs also had a lot of players, but we're in a much better position than at least the Pirates, the Brewers, and the Cardinals in that regard, and I will always take that, even if these prospect lists are very fickle at best.
Yeah, I think one thing to note, too, is these will change very quickly once the season starts. There's a lot of guys who are on MLB rosters who are still on the prospect list, and that's kind of how it works. But as you spend more time in Major League Baseball, we might be sitting in April or May where, like, half these guys have changed because they're on the rosters, they're playing, they're not prospects anymore. There's also guys like Roki Sasaki for the Dodgers, who's the top prospect. Well, we know he's going to be playing right away.
Yeah.
He's never played. And there's also, like, I think, like I said, I think there's a case for the 2 pitchers to be higher. If you would have left any of the hitters off, I'd have been like, maybe Arroyo would be a little bit too much, but, like, I could get it. But these guys could be higher. But, like, you also have some of the higher draft picks being ranked above them, too, which is, like, we don't know how they're going to work out. We know Rhett Lauder played in Major League Baseball. Travis Mazzana, who the Guardians drafted last year, is already prospect number 10. Jack Caglianone is in the top 25. He was a draft pick last year. And it's like guys who are picked in similar spots that Burns and Lauder were, like top 10 picks and everything. And there's a way where they can outperform them pretty quickly. And we could have our prospects move way up their list, or, like, if you're Rhett Lauder, be off the list entirely. It could be some of our other prospects could move onto the list. I was just so surprised when I saw how many MLB players, because it feels like there's more than normal, how many players who have the MLB designation on this list, and then also the high draft picks as well. Charlie Condon's 29 draft pick was pretty early by the Rockies. Like, he's above Rhett Lauder now, and like you said, like, the 1 ERA, if you have an ERA that starts with 1 and you're a prospect that's played Major League Baseball, that seems like maybe it should be a little bit higher. So I don't like the Rhett Lauder disrespect either, but I do think that this will change so much in the next, couple weeks after the season starts.
Yeah, me too. But it's all good though for the Reds, is what we're saying. Is I think you and I had a discussion about Reds prospects maybe being a little better than people thought, and I still believe that. I think they're a little top heavy right now, to be honest with you, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think the Louisville bats specifically, will be much better. I don't think we're going to be relying on 28-year-old Levi Jordan to come up and actually have a significant role on the team. Not to crap on Levi Jordan. He did a decent job when he came up, but you know what I mean. Like, we'll be relying more on the Reese Hines and other types of players, hopefully, this season. Last thing I'm going to do here, Joe, I'm going to read off our non-roster invitees, and then we'll have one quick discussion about our good friend Joseph Daniel Votto. Pitchers: Jose Acuna, Chase Burns, Zach Maxwell, Chase Petty, Brian Shaw, Lenny Torres, and Alex Young. Catchers: Will Banfield, Michael Troutwine, Austin Wins. Infielders, Edwin Arroyo, Cam Collier, Ivan Johnson, and Sal Stewart. And outfielders, Hector Rodriguez. That's the only ones of that list that will be invited to spring training. There are notable names. We just talked about some of them, but you do have your Chase Burns, Chase Petty, double chases, Brian Shaw, Alex Young, Austin Wins, and then literally all of the rest of the infielders and outfielders are, I think, worth noting. I don't know about, Jose Acuna, Maxwell, and Lenny Torres, I'm not really too sure on, to be honest with you, and I definitely have never heard of the other two catchers, but who stands out here to you? If you had to make a guess on who could make the roster of this group, who do you think has the best shot? And then let's quickly talk about where we think the rest of them will go.
Yeah, Alex Young, I think, is the only one I think can make the roster out of camp. Mm-hmm. If Edwin Arroyo was healthy last year, maybe not. If Chase Burns wasn't not pitching last year and being stuck at rookie ball, like this, again, we talked about how much frustration I had when they did that with Lauder, and now they're doing it with Burns. I feel like he could maybe be at a point where he'd be like pushing for a spot, to be honest, which is crazy with how deep we are starting pitcher, but maybe he moves to the bullpen. But it's really just Alex Young. Other than that, I'm excited that all of our top prospects are going to be there. Mm-hmm. I think it's a good idea to get them kind of, especially with the new coaching staff, kind of get them ingrained into how things are going to work. And I think being around Terry Francona is going to be good for these young guys. So, Edwin Arroyo, Cam Collier, Sal Stewart, Chase Burns, glad they're all there. I'm excited to see what they do. And I think, Alex Young is the only one I think who might make the roster out of camp. And even then it might take an injury. So.
Yeah, I think it's Alex Young and Brian Shaw, just because he does have some history, and there's a reason why they brought him specifically back. I could see him making it. It's going to sound stupid, Joe, but I didn't know this. I went to Mike Leake's very first game that he pitched. I believe it was against the Cubs. I just happened to go with my uncle. The one time I went to a game with just my one uncle on my mom's side of the family, and it was his very first game. And I later found out that he basically didn't do any minor leagues. He got drafted and he ended up on the team. I think Burns has that kind of potential. They don't do that as much anymore. I know it was, only, I think maybe 13 or 14 years ago when Leake, made his debut. So things have changed in the last decade for sure. But there's I'd say a better than 1% chance, but a lesser than 5% that he would potentially impress so much, and there might be enough injuries to where he would be able to make the team right away. But names that I'm definitely going to be watching, I already listed, but the big one, I think, actually, I want to see what Chase Petty does. We got him in that trade with Minnesota, I want to say, the Sonny Gray trade, if I remember correctly. He was a top prospect for a while because he was a fireballer. He's reinvented himself over the last year and struggled a little bit, but has been definitely making progress. He's just a little bit, I think maybe like a year behind what would have kept him in that top prospect list. So I'm interested to watch him. Ivan Johnson and Hector Rodriguez are also not too bad. I know we already talked about Arroyo, Collier, and Stewart, but they're guys that are definitely going to be worth watching, without a doubt, who could be the kinds of Rhys Hines type players that maybe they don't have the impact that he had in that very brief 2-week span, but guys who may be getting call-ups at different points, like especially Hector Rodriguez, I think could eventually find his way on this team should he have a good time down there in AAA. So just names that you guys are going to want to watch for. We'll have to see if you got any of the answers that we had down in the comments. I'll be interested to see if you picked somebody else. I would love to hear why. I think Joe would too. That would be very interesting to us. But the last one that we're going to be talking about here, Joe, is our good friend Joey Votto. Posted very recently something really cool where he got a new tattoo. And I know that people are probably like, this isn't that notable, but it's like anything to do with Joey Votto, I feel like is, I don't know, to me, like worth noting right now, especially because it's still so fresh that he's not here. But he put on the post an ode to the city I love, the Queen City. This tattoo features the distinct Cincinnati skyline, not the food, and a map of the city. The heart represents places that hold a deep meaning to me. Great American Ballpark, Free Store Food Bank, Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and the Reds Youth Academy. Now, no matter where life takes me, the city I love will always be with me. It's really cool tattoo, honestly. And I just felt like it was worth noting because I think that Joey Votto is going to come back this year in some way, Joe. He's officially retired. He's doing all this homage. I feel like he wants to move back here. I think he wants a reason to move back to Cincinnati. I don't know what he's going to do. I think I put on Twitter that, like, they need to get him in the broadcast booth or, you know, they need to have him doing something with the team. I don't really care what it is, but if we get through, like, the first month of the season and Joey Votto's not there, I'm going to be really disappointed. I feel like this is almost him prepping to get ready to be a part of the broadcast team because they haven't announced who it's going to be yet. And with the new deal, I think things have maybe changed a little bit. And I feel like Votto would be so good at, like, a Jim Day type job. Like, can you imagine going around the clubhouse talking to guys? Like, oh, I would love that. I would love him being the one who's interviewing people and doing weird stuff. Almost as much as I would like for him to potentially take, sorry, Barry, but Barry Larkin's job. So I don't know how you felt about this, Joe, but I felt like it was worth noting very quickly on this episode.
Yeah, I mean, like, I would have recommended him to just, like, take this year off and just travel, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like he's bored. I'm not going to lie. Like, it really does seem like since he retired, like, he's trying to fund these fun giveaway things, which he did when he was playing, but it kind of, like, feels from the outside he's bored. I hope he's not. I hope he's having a good life, having a good time. But maybe that he misses the clubhouse and, like, you know, wants to be back in it. I would say the first step is doing a Joey Votto Day at the ballpark, which I don't believe they have. Do they have scheduled? I'm kind of looking through the promotional thing while we're talking. I know they
do
have,
not.
Pete Rose one since he passed. Yes, and I looked through it. And I'm double checking right now. I don't think they have one.
They need to retire his
Joey
jersey
Votto Day
too. On that day.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll do that. Yeah, I hope they do. I don't know if they'll do that the year after he retires, but they definitely do need to do that. And have, like, even if it's just a Joey Votto Day where they let him speak before the game or, like, have his old teammates around, Jay Bruce comes back, that'd be really cool. That's number one. And I don't know, like I said, because it's not on the schedule, we just don't know what talks have been had. After that, I would love him to be in the Barry Larkin role. I don't know what's going on with our TV broadcast rights and how they're going to move with the crew. If it is, you know, FanDuel Sports Network, like we talked about last episode, Rob, do they have the money to pay Joey Votto? Are they going to be there long term? Is it like, we don't know. This is all very much up in the air. I want him to be, I don't know if I want him to be a coach. I think I want him in the Barry Larkin role of, hey, you're going to be like a spring training instructor. You're going to be around the guys. You can encourage them. But we have such a big coaching staff right now already.
Yes.
Too many people, arguably too many coaches, because then you get too many people involved in
too many chefs in the kitchen.
Sometimes. Yeah, so I think it's one of those things, but I would love him in the Barry Larkin role where he can have an impact on the players, talk to them in spring training, work with them. If they have any questions, they can always come to him. He's watching the game from a bird's eye view where you can kind of see everything. And I've always thought that, like, baseball is, like, yes, it's a sport where you need the sport to sit with people. It's not constant action. It's kind of like the one-on-one matchup versus the pitcher versus the catcher. And, like, that, a lot needs to not be said. But there are a lot of times where I think other teams' games that I watch that do a three-man booth, very good. Like, if you do it right, like the Yankees do this a lot. Paul O'Neill and I think it was Cameron Maybin, I believe, is on it as well.
Yep.
Like they do it very well, and I think Sadak will be able to balance that. So I would love to have, you know, Barry Larkin can stay if he wants. I think there's enough because he doesn't do road games too. Like even if Votto did the road games, but I think having a Sadak play-by-play, Chris Welsh because he's so knowledgeable with the rules and the pitching and everything, and then either Votto or Larkin be the third guy as like the hitter's perspective would be really good. And I think he'd be really. We saw when he was injured, he was really good at it too. So that would be my recommendation for the Reds. I don't know how possible that is with the new FanDuel Sports Network deal and how that all's going to play out either. So we'll see.
Yeah, they may just simplify it and just keep everybody, right, to make it easy. Votto's not going to be one. I can't imagine he's going to be a guy being like, I need a big contract to be able to do this. I feel like if he just wants to do it, he's going to do it. So we'll have to see. But I really hope they find a way to do something for him this year. He's just... either that or I swear, I feel like he's just going to be at the ballpark like every freaking game, man. Like I can totally see him being a guy who literally just decides that he's going to just start showing up at the games. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if he became a guy who eventually like just bought a box seat and just went to every game. You know what I mean? Like, he'd be that kind of a person. You don't see that very often anymore. You know, it used to be that, like, there would be, like, boxes for certain celebrities for, like, Yankee games and stuff like that. But I feel like if Votto wants to do something, the Reds need to do it. And I feel like I'm hoping that it's not the Reds holding him back from coming back in some way, shape, or form. I'll be honest. That's the thing. That's the only thing I don't want to be the case is, oh man, I'm just like, I'm Joe, I'm imagining in my brain right now just how awesome it would be to have Joey Votto interviewing Terry Francona during a game, or just them just going back and forth. Like, God, I'd almost be willing to sacrifice the 26th roster spot just so that Joey and Terry Francona could work together in some way. Like, I know it sounds really stupid, but there's just a part of me that, like, just, I'm almost yearning for this to happen. Like, I almost want to just, like, go on a campaign and start yelling at, like, anybody who will listen. Put Joey Votto with the Reds in some way, shape, or form. He's just so freaking entertaining. But I don't know. We'll have to see, like you said. Maybe he just takes a year off and we see him next year once, you know, the rights for media maybe shape out a little bit better. But I would not be upset if Barry Larkin even kind of just stepped away and went back to his role that he had with the team, and Votto ended up taking over it in the future. And they did I would be fine every single freaking game if it was Sadak, Votto, and Chris Welsh every game. I would be more than happy for that to be the case. So we'll have to see what will happen. I'm hopeful that something will happen, but we'll wrap it up here, Joe. Went a little longer than anticipated, but I think good conversation was had. Do you have any words of wisdom for Reds fans before we sign off for this week's episode?
Just one thing to watch out for. Will Benson has a new batting stance, and to be honest, with the season he had, he needed it. You got to try anything. It looks like it's more of a compact swing from his Instagram videos, but if fans are wondering if he might be better this year, that might be step number one, because his swing was kind of a mess last year at times. Yeah, long mess, same difference.
I saw the video. My biggest problem has been that he doesn't get his hands into a hitting position quick enough. He's so strong and his hands are so quick that, like, he's made up for it in the past. But I think a lot of the reason why he was so late on balls is because you move your hands, Joe, like when you're getting ready to hit, you kind of cock them, right? And so when he's still doing his batting stance, he's still waving it so much that then if you watch the video that I recently saw posted, his hands move like this. So it's not getting him into a position to hit. Now, I'm not a hitting coach, so I'm sure that they see things that I don't. But in my brief stint of coaching and trying to relearn how hitting best works, obviously MLB players can get away with it a lot more. But that was just something I noticed. I was like, man, if he could just take out the bat movement a little earlier, I think that would help him a lot. But it is more compact. His stride is a little shorter. He's so strong, he doesn't need the extra power. And let's be real, Joe, if he finds a way to be what 2023 Will Benson was, this team definitely looks a lot stronger. Because it seems to me like they are depending on him to play a lot of innings this year, Joe. I'm just going to be honest. The more and more that I see about it, it feels like they are setting him up for one more glorious chance. And I'm 50-50 on if that's going to be a good idea or not, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like, Terry Francona obviously has some familiarity with him from his time in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Like, they traded him away for not much. So, like, I'm kind of wondering, like, does he like him? Does he see something in him? Did he see something in him originally that he wants to kind of develop now? As it was just, hey, it didn't work out in Cleveland? There's a lot to be said, but if they don't get another bat, then he's probably going to be playing a lot more than people want to say. So I'm with you. That kind of scares me.
We'll have to see, guys. We will have to see. But we're getting closer, like we said. Pitchers and catchers will report here in 2 weeks. So we're excited to kind of give you guys some coverage of that, give you guys some thoughts on it. But as always, we really appreciate it. Leave a like and subscribe if you love Reds content over here at the Reds Rundown. We are part of the Game House, as a quick reminder, so you can always go check out any of our other content on the website and on our YouTube channel as well. But that's going to wrap it up for us on this episode of Reds Rundown. So with that, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.